There's something on my system that when I launch it resets the mic volume, and I don't fucking know what it is. I think it might be Zoom.
What are you recording in?
I'm recording in Audacity.
In what?
What do you mean?
What's Audacity running in?
An application that runs on the computer.
In what operating system?
Oh, it's Linux. I run Linux almost all the time now, Brad.
I was actually that was the first thing I was going to propose for the cold open this week. Actually, was what are you recording in week to week now? But we have something else to get into as well.
So, yeah, there's an application that is most stuff is pretty well behaved, but I do a lot of video calls for work, and I think one of the either Google Meet or Zoom is doing automatic gain control and resets the system level microphone volume on ALSA.
I hate
which
that.
is so annoying.
It's a problem in Windows as well. In fact, we're constantly fighting it.
Yeah.
And everything wants to adjust. And I get it. I mean,
yeah, they assume least common denominator, right?
99% of people using video call software are just doing it to have meetings with people or catch up or whatever. Like most people are not using them to record podcasts. In fact, there are specialized tools for that.
Zoom has a really good setting for people who have real audio chains. That's like, hey, you don't do anything to this audio. Don't process it at all.
That's cool. That's smart.
They added it during the pandemic because musicians were doing Zoom streams where they played together.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't. It's frustrating. But
sounds like everything's a mess over there this morning.
Look, man. So you know how sometimes when you have a piece of glass on top of a piece of metal. And so I make coffee every morning. I have an old Kalita glass brewer that it brews into, and it sits on top of my Hario coffee scale, which has a metal top. And if I'm not careful, a little bit of water gets between those two, and if I do it exactly wrong, then there's a little bit of a float there, and it reduces the friction enough that the Kalita slides on the glass. Usually I'm paying attention to it. It's not a problem.
Oh no.
But this morning, we're watching Norm's dog, which I have a question about. And the dog was like, hey, man, I want to go out. So I turned around after I poured the water in the coffee pot, went to let the dog out. When I came back, I think it probably slid off.
Ooh.
And the whole tower, one day the tower fell. There was coffee and grounds everywhere. It's on the coffee. The coffee station is right next to the drying mat for the stuff that doesn't go in the dishwasher. And so it's soaked into the drying mat for that stuff. It's grounds everywhere. It's no glass broke. It only fell 1/4 of an inch. So that was good.
That is, yes. It's small blessings.
But yeah, huge. I honestly, I almost would rather have had broken glass because then there's a reason to be upset as opposed to just it being an enormous mess. And now I have to go put the dish mat in the washing machine after I finish the podcast.
And maybe an excuse to buy something new.
Can I ask you a question, though?
Sure. Well, actually, yes, if I can first make yet another pitch to you.
Yes.
About what if you just had some instant coffee?
Do
you know what my coffee making process is?
Do you even drink coffee anymore? I thought you were off.
No, I got back on.
Okay. What do?
I boil some water, or not even boil. I heat some water to 160 F. I put 1 teaspoon of instant coffee in the mug. Pour in the water and stir.
My grandparents used to do that too. They used Taster's Choice.
That was my grandparents' brand too. No, actually, sorry. I think they were Nescafe Classico folks or Nescafe folks.
Taster's Choice. Occasionally, they would have Folgers crystals. I think at my grandparents' house. But
we just buy the Nescafe Classico in bulk at Costco these days, and it's fine. It's fine. It's it'll get you through, which is all I'm looking for.
I want coffee to taste good. I want it to taste something.
It's not bad.
I know, but
I'm not going to say it's up to your monthly Voodoo subscription. Not Voodoo.
Ritual donuts. Yeah. But I get Ritual. I have 2 subscriptions a month. I get 2 bags of coffee a month. One's from Ritual. One's from this place called Yes Please, which is run by Tonks, the guy who started Tonks Coffee that then got bought by Blue Bottle years and years ago. And they both do single origins, so it's a little bit different every time.
Okay, that's fair.
I like variety. It's a spice.
I mean, I've just been thinking actually in the last week or two, man, I miss cold brew. That was fun, or it wasn't fun. Sorry, let me rephrase that. It was pleasant to drink. It was not fun to make. It was a ton of work, actually. And maybe I'll go back to it at some point because it is very tasty, but man, it's a lot of work.
I think it depends on the brewer. You were using a toddy or you were using mason jars?
I was using the biggest mason jar I could get method.
Yeah, see, that is hard. That is this is where if you're doing something on the reg, get a specialized device for it because it'll make it a lot easier.
And half the reason it was so much work is because I really don't like the silt in the cold brew.
Yes, so I was filtering.
Yeah, I was like filtering it through paper filters, which took like for the big mason jar, it took like basically the better part of a day just going in there every hour to pour a little more through, and you have to change the filter like 3 times through that process. It takes forever.
That's insane. So
and the huge mess of grounds at the end of the process is just a nasty mess. Like it's just ugh.
Well, so when I do cold brew, I use a Hario brewer that has a nylon filter that's really fine mesh. So there's a little bit of grit, but you just don't pour the very last little bit out of the pot. And it makes me like 4 days worth, basically.
Okay, yeah, it's all right.
And then the coffee grounds go in the blueberry bushes outside, which they love. So that's good.
Okay, all right. Quickly, what's the question?
Do you change clothes in front of somebody else's dog? Would you do that?
Yeah.
She came in the bedroom last night while I was putting my pajamas on, and this is Norm's dog, and she just was sitting there on the ground staring at me. And I was like, I feel uncomfortable getting undressed in front of you, Ripley.
What level of cognition are we assuming of the dog?
She was giving me the dead eye stare. She was just like, just completely focused on everything I was doing, not just like lounging in the room. Like lounging in the room, no problem. But the stare, I was unnerved by. Couldn't do it.
Not an expert in canine neuroscience over here, but my understanding is that a dog would not even be able to recognize themselves changing clothes.
Dogs don't wear clothes, Brad.
But if they did, they also don't have the sense of self to cover themselves up.
Dogs are smarter than you might think.
Have some decency, dogs.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
Hi, Brad. Hello.
Okay, I had another weird thing happen this morning. It's been
smooth sailing over here. So I don't know, you're absorbing all of the chaos in the Bay Area right now.
Yeah, I welcome to the chaos magnet. My name's Will. I woke up this morning. My alarm went off at 7, just like it often does, and I got up. And then at 7:05, my alarm went off again. I was like, oh, I must have snoozed instead of slept. That's weird. Snooze is usually 9 minutes on my phone. I don't know if that's what, I don't know why that's the alarm. Snooze has always been 9 minutes. Like my first digital alarm clock was a 9-minute snooze.
Is this still an alarm clock, or are we talking phone?
This is phone. Like who has an alarm clock in 2026?
Well, there's still like this pervasive meme that iPhones are terrible about alarms, like that they'll sometimes play silently. People wake up late for work, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, okay.
I don't know how legitimate that is.
I've not had a problem with that, but I usually just wake up naturally. It's unusual that the alarm's a backup for me usually.
Yeah, I always wake up earlier than I need to, but I to this day am a little skittish about just trusting the phone if I have like a flight and need to get up at 3 or something like that.
So I love Gina is a little bit more of a night owl than I am these days, and I love wearing the watch to bed so that the watch can tap me awake so it doesn't wake her up necessarily.
Okay. Well, I've got thoughts about the watch in bed, which we will, when we get to the kind of Apple wrap up.
Have you opened the iPad yet?
When we get to the Apple... This is a ridiculous situation. I mean, I'll talk about that on this episode too when we get to it, but I've got a new iPad that's been sitting in the box because I cannot find a smart cover that I like. And I don't trust using it without a cover.
Dude.
Like leaving a bare iPad lying around the house.
That's what I do every day. 5 years I've had one.
Terrifying. I'm still using my old iPad is about to fall apart.
Anyway,
we'll get to that later.
So 10 minutes after that, I got another alarm. And I was like, what the hell's going on? I'm going through the questions. This is questions week, by the way. Going through the questions and marking the ones I want to answer and all that stuff like we usually do on the morning of the recording. And every 10 minutes, I kept getting alarms. So I finally opened up my alarm app, and every alarm on my phone was turned on.
Whoa.
I didn't know. I don't even know how to do. I must have done a Siri or something to it.
Like historical alarms. To be clear, like I don't love the way the iOS alarm app works, where it saves every alarm you've ever made. And
I delete them every once in a while.
Okay, yeah. I don't like, you open the alarm app if you haven't looked at it in a while, and there's like 36 different times set.
Oh, I have way more than 36. Because I often will do like, hey, give me a, like if I have to go pick up the kiddo at class or something, I'll set an alarm for 10 minutes before I need to leave so I don't forget. Stuff
Interesting.
Like that.
So you set an alarm for that? I always set a timer instead of like a persistent alarm. I just kind of I eyeball the time and be like, okay, 15-minute timer.
So it depends on whether there's an hour transition between when I need the alarm for and when I do it. If it's less than 45 minutes, then I'll usually do a timer. But if I have to go, if it's like 3 o'clock and I needed to pick her up at 6:15, rather than do that math in my head, I'll just say, hey, give me an alarm at 6 o'clock. Anyway, so I have dozens and dozens of alarms in my phone, and every single one of them was turned on, and I have no idea how that happened.
That's horrifying.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I'm surprised I didn't wake up last night.
Is there a way to turn them all off en masse?
You go down the line and just tap the little, it took like 5 minutes. It was annoying.
So Siri you didn't try telling Siri, hey, disable every alarm?
As I was doing this, I was thinking, how could this possibly have happened? The only thing I can come up with was that I must have asked Siri to set an alarm, and she instead turned on all the alarms, or he instead turned on all. I use boy Siri. Anyway, if you have answers for how this could have happened, please send us an email to techpod@content.town.
Yeah.
Or if you have a question that you want turned into an A, sir.
Yeah.
You can go to techpod.content.town.
Yeah, you sure could do that.
We are going to turn some questions into answers today. If you're in the Discord, if you're a member of the Patreon and would like to submit a question, you can go to the Questions Seeking Answers channel, and you'll post it and it'll disappear, but other people might see it, so don't put secret stuff in there. And then we'll at the end of the month, we'll dig deep into the pile of questions and pull out the, let's say, 5 to 20 most interesting ones. And go down the list, run down the list.
To be clear, plenty of interesting ones we just don't have time to get to.
Yeah,
as well.
Look, every question is unique and interesting in its own way.
That's right.
Some are just slightly more interesting than others, or possibly we have a better answer for them. And
or they're just shorter.
Yeah. Yeah. Often it's just like, hey, man, this is a 1 paragraph, like 3 sentence long question. Yeah. That's a winner in my book.
All right. Speaking of, this one is 3 sentences, as a matter of fact. All right. It's signed Michael Transactions.
That was the email. Elusive. Just to be clear, it was not signed. That was the name that was the email address name.
Okay.
Michael Transactions.
Got it. Well, the elusive Michael Transactions returns. Curious if you think the MacBook Neo is a better value proposition for the family member that just needs a computer for web browsing, email, and Netflix versus an iPad. I certainly think it would make more sense for a child who might one day want to learn and do more with the computer than an iPad will allow. It seems like this might have relegated the iPad into a further niche specifically for people that need its tablet capabilities. I think I would agree with that. Well, I guess one thing to note is that a lot of the iPads are more powerful than the MacBook Neo. But
yeah, like my iPad is faster than the MacBook Neo.
Yeah, by
a huge margin.
Like a significant number of. Well, actually, is it just the Pros, or doesn't the kind of high end regular line also use the M chip?
Yeah, everything uses the M chip,
except
but
for
the cheapo,
except for the
iPad
low end one.
Yeah.
Or no,
Air's a regular M1 now too. It's just not M1 Pro.
I hate that the branding on the iPads is terrible. That I can't keep straight which one is the budget one and which one is the mid tier.
So it's the plain iPad uses the A series processors. Last I looked, but I'm not 100%.
Isn't that the inverse of the laptop line? Are you saying the iPad Air is superior to the iPad?
The iPad Air is superior to the iPad,
right.
Yes.
Which is
there's no MacBook anymore,
that's right.
right.
There is no MacBook.
Yeah.
Period. At this point, you're right. Anyway, yeah. I mean that, but also you probably know if you need the power of an M chip versus an A chip anyway, so it's not a huge deal.
So the iPad Air is an M4 now.
Okay.
They seem to get updated more frequently. The iPad is an A16, I think, still.
Oh, yeah. That's
iPad.
That's pretty old because I think the Neo is an 18 Pro, A18 Pro. Just like substantial, like to be clear, like that is not a weak, like the Neo is crazy and how quickly it has sold out and like gained a reputation as being an amazing value and et cetera, et cetera.
So the thing is, it's a category that, like, there aren't a whole lot of nice $500, $600 PC laptops these days.
Yeah.
Like that's it. You're in the kind of janky budget territory where you're going to make some weird compromise and you're going to be like, oh man, the trackpad on this thing sucks, or there's no touch screen or whatever. Now, to answer the question, I think depends on the age of the kid, right?
Yeah.
Like the nice thing about the iPad is if you put it in the right case for a young child, it's basically indestructible. Like you can get one of those big foam cases that has a half inch of clearance on all sides and they can't do anything to it, right? I don't know. And also versus like a laptop where you have hinges and keyboards and there's holes that go into the thing. There's all sorts of ways that can go bad. It's a more destructible device.
Yeah, you're right. I think we should probably seize on the phrase here, though, needs a computer for web browsing, email, and Netflix. That sounds a little bit older. Like email sounds like we're talking like school age.
Fifth,
like,
sixth grade, yeah.
I don't know if this is my like aged graybeard tendencies, but I would absolutely go real laptop for like a school age child.
Well, so Grampy Brad, they don't, the kids often get assigned Chromebooks now.
Yeah. Oh, I know that.
They don't tend to use email too much. No. Email is something that boomers use, is my understanding.
Yeah, but I think email can also just be shorthand for like writing papers or anything that is like a long form requires typing.
Yeah, so I like this as I think in my head canon, this is Apple's step up for kids who grew up with iPads and need a computer and don't be like. Most people aren't going to spend $1,000 on a MacBook Air for a 10-year-old.
Yeah,
this seems kind of crazy.
The Neo is $600. We should.
If you have an EDU address, it's $500.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I wish the thing that you lose is the ability to run all those iPad apps. So if you're literally transitioning a kid from an iPad to a laptop, then they lose the ability to run the apps that they've grown up with and all that. So then you're still keeping them with two devices, really.
It depends, though, because there's quite a few kind of universal apps that run on both now. But I think that does. I'm talking
about the touch stuff in games.
Yeah. Just like, that does have to be enabled by developers.
Yeah, and also you lose the ability to use like a pencil or stylus, which is like the number of hours my kid has spent in the back of a car on a long road trip drawing on my iPad is very high.
Yeah. So there's obviously a use case. I'm just kind of excited about a device that exposes a keyboard and a real file system and a terminal for like, I kind of feel like more people should remember how to use real computers.
I agreed. I think for this market, I still really wish that Apple would do an iPad that runs Mac OS, because the big problem with the iPad as a general purpose computer is that the browser is still essentially a mobile browser. And like, even though that machine has the horsepower to run a real browser, you still end up in weird situations where you get like this browser is not supported, or you end up in like weird null zone where you're neither fish nor fowl in terms of a desktop browser. Like it doesn't think that you're a mobile browser. You're not super as well supported as like the iPhone browser, but also you maybe don't have a native app that fits the screen right to replace the browser based application. And you can't use like my bank. I can't log in with the frickin' iPad browser. I have to use their app.
I mean, I think that same principle would apply to the out-of-box experience generally, though, in that situation, because like macOS is not designed for touch interactions at all. So like, what does that look like if somebody doesn't buy a keyboard and pointing device for it? Like they would have to like significantly rework the macOS UI to make it work just as an iPad without add-ons.
I agreed.
And
I mean,
at that point, we're getting, at that point, we're kind of getting almost back into territory. Like maybe it's better to just make iPad OS, I guess now it's called. Like making iPad OS more robust is probably a more seamless transition than making Mac OS work with touch. I mean,
bringing the real browser to iPad OS would be nice. Yeah. Right.
Sure.
I don't know. I think the real answer to this question is it seems like it's a much, and Brad Charkis over at The Full Nerd has talked about this because he bought one, but it seems like a much nicer laptop than you get in the PC space for $500-$600.
Yeah, even as reduced as it is in some ways, like it doesn't have. Yeah. It's just a mechanical track touchpad instead of a multi-touch, or the
8 gigs of RAM, all of that stuff. It's still pretty good.
Even still pretty. Have you seen? This is the common narrative around the Neo, and I think this is backed by reporting, but I don't think I've read an actual story on it. But the general narrative is this thing is based on A18 Pro chips that were poorly binned from that generation of iPhone, like a core didn't work right or whatever. And this thing has been such a runaway success that they have burned through because they basically were using this as a way to get rid of chips that were not good enough for iPhones.
Yeah.
And this thing has sold maybe faster than they expected. And now they're approaching a point where I don't think the tooling is still set up to make those chips anymore. So now they're kind of in a tough spot where they have this runaway success, but it might not be worth, like, it might eat into the margins too much to be worth making new chips to make more of these things. Like, there's talk that they might rush the next generation of the Neo out faster and move to like an A19.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if they do that. I think there's a lot of that happening. Like we saw that last year with AMD and some of their, like they were releasing AIM4 processors in like the global south that were clearly like badly binned 7600s or something. Right.
Right.
I would love for that to be the truth. I also like, it wouldn't surprise me if they have M1s and stuff like that. Like they sell, like I look at those Walmart $600 MacBook M1s that they sold last year, your MacBook Air M1s that they sold last year. And like, they're clearly, somebody's clearly looking at the stuff that they have stockpiled and being like, oh yeah, we should figure out a way to move this.
Yeah.
And like in the old days, it was, hey, we're going to put an A4 in the Apple TV. Right now, I don't know. Like this is a new frontier for them. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. This is more of just a quick comment than a question. It's from Tucson Ted.
You think he's related to?
Do you think he is the more migratory cousin of Chicago Ted?
I mean, maybe it's the same guy, and he just moved from Chicago to Tucson. And winters are much easier down there.
Wow, Chicago Ted skipped town.
I mean,
man,
it seemed like things weren't going great in Chicago, from what I know about Chicago Ted.
Fair.
People are real confused if they haven't played Left 4 Dead. Also,
yes. They should make another Left 4 Dead.
Let me tell you let me tell you how many times I've had this conversation. Hi, Chet.
All right. Tucson Ted writes in, this is about like remote admin of mobile devices in the corporate world that we talked about
this
recently.
a while ago.
I worked for a medium-sized business on a team managing company-owned laptops and access to company IM and email on personal phones. Your experience back in the day of IT departments having to wipe your whole phone to remove company data is 100% correct for that time. Apple and Google have since added compartmentalization of company data to their respective OSs. Even Microsoft can now do it in bring your own device companies. Now mobile device management solutions can selectively wipe company data without touching personal data. Tools like Intune and other MDMs can even block access to company data like email if your device doesn't meet company policy, like being jailbroken, behind on security patches, or physically in a non-approved location, such as out of the country. As long as your company's IT team is halfway decent, you don't have to worry about company data on your personal phone anymore.
Okay. I realize that there's a difference between technical reasons that you can do things and how you can do things, and like morals, not the right word, but reasons you as a consumer and a person who is an employee should do things.
Mm-hmm.
It's good that they don't have to wipe the phone.
Yeah.
They still have the capability to wipe the phone if they want.
Yeah.
And also, if they're not paying for my phone bill and or giving me a device, I don't know why I should be subsidizing the companies having access to me in time that I'm not supposed to be working.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
This is why we both are indie, Brad.
That's right. That's one of many real, no joke. I mean, but also like, I don't want to just blithely be like, everybody should just work for themselves, because that is a tall order. It's not easy.
Yeah, no, it sucks in a lot of ways.
Or what I mean is like, everybody doesn't just have the opportunity to jump ship. If you've got a secure job and everything, but that is genuinely one of the nice things about self-employment. But it's always one of the things I appreciated at Whiskey Media was they didn't give a shit. There was half the company was just using their own personal hardware, and it was too small of a startup to care about any kind of like centralized management or whatever. It was just like, hey, we'll buy you a computer if you want, or you can just use your laptop. Just do whatever.
Do you know who managed all that stuff?
No,
it was me.
Well, later,
once I started, I immediately started running all of the app login and stuff so that we could get real access to Google on our phones, because that wasn't a thing that happened when I started. I was like, why am I logging in with IMAP here?
It was all extremely DIY for the first couple of years. Anyway, email from Lucas that is close to my heart. Microsoft should sell a Linux distro that looks like Windows 11 for $30. Linux has not nailed UX yet. If Microsoft did this, it would ruin their moat, which is how hard it is to switch from Windows to Linux. But they might stop the bleeding of users who are tired of being treated like numbers on a spreadsheet. If they don't get serious about Windows, they won't make $30 per user. They will make zero as everyone jumps to Linux.
So there's two different things here, right? One is how it looks and how you interact with the computer.
Yeah.
The other is the software that runs. I would love to see Microsoft make a fork of Winboat, because Winboat is the thing that basically runs emulation in the background and can do like virtualized instances for a single application, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love what he is talking about, which is effectively like a POSIX compliant undercarriage with the Windows UI on top, and presumably all of the like Windows specific runtimes that let you
APIs,
let you run the last 30 years of Windows software, which is exactly what I wish Windows was now. Like it's exactly, I've bellyached about this before. Like Microsoft's decision to go off and make their own kernel and their own OS and their own everything when everything else was based on Unix across the computing industry.
I mean, it was
has led to some real friction. It sucks because they're the only ones still these days, but because they're so huge, you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
This touches on a really fascinating niche of like computing history. Have you ever heard of, let me make sure I've got the name of this right. I've got a YouTube video saved in my watch later list that I keep meaning to. Yes. AUX, A/UX.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
It's Apple's Unix that like had a classic System 7 style Finder on top of it. Like it was an alternative. You could buy it from Apple and run it on your Mac, but it was Unix underneath, but with the Apple, with the then current like System 7 interface on top.
Yeah, this was like mid 90s, right? Early 90s.
88 to 95 is
when I was in college, I think.
88 to 95 is the period they were selling that, which is crazy when you go back and read about how awful Mac OS, like it wasn't Mac OS at the time. It was the Macintosh system software, I guess is what they called it, System 7, et cetera. But like
it was terrible.
You know, I mean, famously, that's the whole reason they ended up buying Next and almost bought B.
Yeah, it was
down to B and
battle.
Yeah, it was down to B and Next. But the point is they had to buy a new operating system because the original one was so awful and they could not manage to replace it. But it's crazy to think there was another, and I think AUX ran Mac software. Like, wasn't that part of the selling
I don't know
point?
about that. I think it was so you could connect to other Unix machines and like remote into them and stuff like that. But I never had any experience with it.
Yeah, I never touched it. I'd swear part of the sell. We could follow up on this later.
We should do an episode about this. That sounds interesting.
But like that idea of kind of older operating systems with alternative kind of engines underneath is really fascinating to me. Like,
is there a Mac Mr. Core? There isn't, is there?
I don't know. There's definitely an Apple II core.
Yeah, I knew there's an Apple II core. I don't think there's a Mac core, like a classic Mac.
I don't know.
I wonder if anybody's bothered to do the work, the FPGA work to make the Motorola processors work.
It looks like there is, in fact, a Macintosh Plus core.
Oh, sick. Okay.
I might have to mess around with that, actually.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I dated a girl who had a Mac Plus when I was in college, and like I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I was always like, hey, can I check my email on your computer?
Sure. I've mentioned this. Maybe we'll follow up on this later. Like Microsoft made their own version of Unix called Xenix that was apparently pretty successful and quite good in the DOS era. Mm-hmm. Like there was a proper multi-user, multitasking operating system from Microsoft at the same time the DOS was starting to predominate, and it fucking sucks that DOS and then Windows are what took over instead of like, it would be really nice if every operating system was like kind of compatible at a basic level these days, but they're not.
Look, man, if you're making computer software and you have the choice of making one computer for a bunch of people or a bunch of computers for one person each, which one's better for you? Yeah.
Yep. All right. Jonas writes in, I believe this is a twofer. Yes, this is a twofer. The first part, I worked for Sharp Business Systems USA, a spinoff of Sharp Electronics Corporation. Before I interviewed, I looked into Sharp so I could have some company knowledge to bring with me.
It's a good move.
I started by reading through their wiki page, which is where I learned the following. In 1912, Tokuji Hayakawa founded a metal workshop in Honjo, Tokyo. The first of his many inventions was a snap buckle named Tokubijo. Another of his inventions was the ever-ready Sharp mechanical pencil in 1915. The product became one of the first internationally available mechanical pencils, while concurrent U.S. design replaced it soon and became a modern type. And due to this big success, the Sharp Corporation derived its name from it. I did not know that the Ever Ready Sharp was the name of the product, and then they became the Sharp Corporation. That's fun.
I had a Sharp calculator for a long time. Like a solar digital pocket calculator. Yeah. It was very cool.
All right. Okay, so here's the other part of this email. The podcast regarding File Explorer. He's talking about the Windows 11. What's wrong with Windows 11 episode we did last week. I found some of the guys, some of the issues you guys mentioned are solved by an app aptly called Files that you can pick up for a one-time fee of $4.99. It also defaults to local folders, not the OneDrive garbage that you have to manually remove. It has many other quality of life features, and they are constantly improving it.
So we've talked about Files before.
Yes. I think you've used it. I used it for a long time. Got around to using it. I've looked at it, and I've tried a couple other alternative File Explorer applications. There's some open source ones out there as well. I could have mentioned this on the Windows episode, though. Do you remember years ago when people were mad that iOS wouldn't let you set your own custom apps for things like I want to use my own default mail app, not the Apple one. I want to use Google Maps, not I want to set my default browser. Windows should have that for File Explorer.
That was why I stopped using Files, is because you'd have enough situations where you'd open something up and it wouldn't open the right thing, and then you have to close it and open the right thing, and it was just a hassle.
Too many cases where it's going to spawn a File Explorer window anyway from some other application instead of the one you want to use. I just don't think it would. Yeah,
it's been at least 3 years and maybe more than that since I used Files last. I also found it was a little slower, which may not be the case anymore thanks to the efforts of the folks in Redmond.
Yes, fair.
On the pencil front, I got another pencil.
Oh, man. All right. That was quick.
Well, I needed the other pencil didn't have an eraser, so I started looking at good erasers, and I found the Tombow company, which makes the mono plastic eraser, a classic. You'll recognize the design. It's like a blue stripe, a white stripe, and a black stripe with the word mono in between them.
Seen it.
They make a mechanical pencil that's an automatic pencil, and as you write, it kind of like the lead extends just by the movement of your hand.
Oh, another automatic feeding mechanism.
And it
was not $245.
It was not $245. It was $8.
Wow,
I think.
Man.
So this is the mono. This one's fine. I still like the big fat lead one better. This is the Tombow monograph. And the big feature is it has the fancy mono plastic eraser in the back. And it extends. It's really, really long. It's not like a normal 1/4 inch eraser. It's like a full 1.5 inches of eraser. Now, I don't make mistakes, so it's not really something that I need all that often. But
of course,
if you were a person who made mistakes, it seems good.
Fair. Maybe one more email before we do some Discord questions.
Yeah, sure.
Big head mode. Do you think 3D printers will be common in every home in the next decade? I've seen the material realities of the process, and I think it's much more likely that 3D printers are found in libraries, maker spaces, and homes of small businesses.
I think it makes much more sense for them to be in a shared space, except for the time it takes to print stuff is sometimes pretty substantial. And so Norm has loaned me a printer he's not using, and I've been printing stuff for the last like two weeks now. It's remarkable how much more reliable they are than the last time I touched them, which was admittedly a decade ago. But it is much more of a device that you can hit the button and leave. When you have a print fail, the camera is watching and it sends you a message on your phone or an email or whatever. It's like, hey man, your print's jacked up. You should go look at it.
I wonder, is that using computer vision?
Yeah, it uses computer vision. I think they say it has AI. I don't know what that means. Is actual like LLM kind of image processing AI or just pattern recognition. But yeah. So yeah, like that said, most of the stuff that I printed so far, like I printed a bunch of fidgets. Like I did a big hexagonal, testing out some new filament yesterday.
Oh, that's
neat. I've got this. It's a good fidget.
Wow.
Right. It's like nested hexagons, like 30 or 40 of them. You can kind of wiggle them around using the slack.
It's got a real fluid quality to it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Did you see that toilet fidget that I bought at the last flea market?
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing's rad.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of stuff you can do. It's funny, the rise of keyboard switches and fidgets has been real good for hey, you have a thing that clicks and makes a noise beyond just the clicking. Like Adam has one at the office that's a duck quacking sound that you just hammer it and it goes quack, 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 quack. So I printed a ton of like little shims and stuff. Like I printed a hook. I use an electronic toothbrush that's like an ultrasonic toothbrush, and you take the head off every day when you finish using it, or else crud grows in the gap between the toothbrush head and the toothbrush itself. And like I'd just been setting that like business side down in my medicine cabinet, and I printed a little hook that I jammed a magnet or two in and hung it on the wall, right?
Yeah.
And it's like little stuff that you can make in Tinkercad in about 10 minutes has been really good. I printed some hooks that are like the right thickness for poster board posters that I have in my office that are old Maximum PC covers that hang on the wall. And like, I didn't want to put anything through them because they're kind of special. But I also don't want to, like, I didn't want to get them framed because it would be stupid expensive and just make them thicker. So I printed little corner holders that are exactly the right thickness for the different thicknesses of poster board that they're printed on. I made a thing that that right angles, like my Elgato face cam normally mounts on the bottom. And because of where the camera is in my setup, it would be really nice if I could mount it from the back instead. So I just printed an L-shaped bracket that has holes in the right places for the USB to go through and to put 1/4-inch screw mounts in, so that it can be mounted on the back instead of on the bottom. So it's like a bunch of little goofy stuff right now. But there's real value, and most of that stuff is like a 20-minute print, so
yeah.
it does kind of make sense. I think
like that stuff is rad to me. There's this kind of like almost utopian idea of democratizing that kind of thing for DIY home improvement and repair and stuff like that, which is rad. But I feel like that collides with the like not just technical aptitude, but also just the like energy level of the average person to go through everything you need to do to get to that point. And I feel like the vast majority of people are unless it gets way, way more turnkey and easier to access, I just don't see the average person making that huge investment for deferred payoff. You know, like it's a lot. It's still quite a bit of equipment and know-how that you have to build up for something you are going to use later when you need it and not right now.
I think like anything else, it's that you don't buy that and then look for a project. You buy it because you have a project that you need that for.
Fair, yeah.
I think about like my daughter's basketball goal has a big water tank on the bottom, and the cap for the tank that you put the water in got pushed through a few years ago. And I was looking at it the other day. I was like, oh, this is something I can model in about 5 minutes and put the right size lip on, right size plug, and all that. And so I got the right kind of filament that won't break down in the sun to jam out the other day, and I'm going to print one later this afternoon.
Cool. It's awesome that exists. Like it's cool for people who want to do it.
Yeah, and it's going to cost me like 35 cents, and it's a thing that would have cost me $20 if I ordered the replacement part from the company that made the basketball hoop after it was shipped and all that stuff.
Yeah, and the other layer to this ecosystem that I think, it already exists. In addition to people like you who are very motivated and are going to do this themselves, and also the like putting it in shared spaces. Like there's also just the sort of like subreddit of people who offer to print things for you, or the Etsy makers, the library. The library is the answer. There's a bunch of these bamboo printers at the San Francisco South San Francisco Public Library that you could just come in and check out, and you can put a print on, come back 2 days later. And it's done. But I mean, for people who either don't have access to that at their library at all, or don't care enough to invest that time and effort, like just you need one thing every 3 years, you can just go online and get somebody to do it for you. Like there's also like that capability is just going to get better.
Well, and then the other part of it is that each of these problems, assuming people upload their solutions to like Thingiverse or Printables or one of the places that Norm talked about on the episode a few weeks ago, Maker World, one of those. If you can search well for them, you can often find somebody who already solved the problem.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do the actual Tinkercad work or whatever.
Yeah. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but this kind of reminds me of the like hardcore AI advocates that are basically like, software engineering is dead. Everybody's just going to prompt their own custom apps for everything in the future. Like, are you fucking kidding? Like, really? Like, do you really think every single person out there is going to, especially once LLMs start charging what they actually need to charge to make money and not as like a VC driven loss leader? Like, you really think people are going to pay $20-$30 a month to have to mentally spec out the apps they need, spend the time iterating on them to make them work right, and then keep them up to date and like secure. Like, come on.
Look, that's engineer logic, right?
It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Like it is just like so dismissive of the way the average person uses technology.
I will say Harry McCracken, who is a friend and somebody I've respected for a long time, was the former editor-in-chief of PC World long time ago, has been writing his own, he's been vibe coding his own text editor.
Oh yeah, there are definitely people who like can and will do that, like for sure.
It's been really fascinating to watch him because like he's gone through this whole process, and as he said, like he has really specific requirements, he has specific needs. And then there's also a ton of stuff in most word processors that he absolutely doesn't need. And just getting like it honed down to be like the distraction free, but exactly what he needs solution has been it's been fun watching him figure that out.
Yeah.
I think like I think we all know how I feel about AI stuff in general, but I think that there's real benefit to more people getting some product design experience by doing that kind of exercise.
Sure.
Because I think the and it doesn't have to be in this. It could be something else. It could be designing a new toilet paper holder for your bathroom, right? When you start thinking like a product designer, when you start thinking like somebody who has to build something that tens or hundreds of thousands of people are going to potentially touch, it gives you a different approach and different focus and more understanding about all the other millions of things that you touch every day that are designed. That is
100% true. That is a super valuable like mental discipline or exercise. I've actually done this a few times now. Like I've said before, I occasionally am using Copilot a bit in Windows because it's free. I'm just going to use it until they turn off the spigot for things that are not easily searchable. But I've done this 2 or 3 times where I've gone to it and sort of proposed a piece of software, but I have been incredibly explicit about do not write any code. Do not show me any code.
Yeah.
Because I don't want it to write code for me. I want to do that myself because that's the fun part and the valuable learning part. But there have been like, okay, it is actually really valuable in terms of making yourself think through what it is you need in a really like clearly delineated and like systematized way. In terms of kind of like you said, being sort of an amateur sort of product designer or product manager. B, it's like turned me on to a lot of options for implementing it myself that I would not have known about otherwise. It's like I describe this very generalized set of features I'm looking for, and like I'm going to do it in Python because that's what I've got the most skill with. But then it goes and proposes some like obscure Python module I didn't know existed that I can go out and plug in and get a bunch of functionality out of. It's like, here's this thing for watching directories and looking for file changes, and here's this thing that specializes in generating XML, and it's like, okay, you're proposing some like Legos that I can plug together that I would not have known about to make this work better, but you're not actually doing any of it for me.
And I think this is the reason that the engineer and Valley types all think that AI is going to eat the world, is because it's really good at that stuff. Like if you say, hey, I want to do this with an application, and it says, okay, here's what we should, here's the pieces you need. Do you want to build them? Do you want me to build them? Like that is a tractable problem. There's multiple right answers. There's no dissemination because it either works or it doesn't at the end of the day. And like, it's a really, like I was talking to a friend who's a developer yesterday, and I was like, hey, do you just tell it what you want it to do? He's like, well, no, I sit down, I tell it what I want it to do and tell it to break it into sections. And then either I write those sections or I get it to write those sections so that I understand what's actually happening in the app, and B, the code is manageable to the point that I can actually review it when it generates it.
Yep.
But also, as he said, he didn't think he would have been able to do that if he hadn't spent 20 years writing software the old fashioned way. Like the ability to understand both what it's doing and the overarching systems architecture stuff is hard.
Yep.
And is a skill.
Yep.
So anyway.
Yeah, but it definitely has introduced me to some, I guess, like patterns is the sort of coding appropriate jargon for like different techniques, not algorithms as such, but like, like it's kind of helping me understand like how an event loop works and like what other approaches to that kind of thing are and stuff like that. I also this week I got to have the experience of having to go back and add to something I wrote about 3 years ago now, which had no LLM involvement whatsoever, but That was a fun one. It's the little tool that I use to process podcasts several times a week. Like I had need of some new functionality in that and had to go back and stare at what I did like 3 years ago and try to make sense of all the uncommented stuff so I could add like 6 lines.
Did you put some comments in there?
Not really.
Future you will thank you.
Yeah.
I guess my point is code works that way and developing applications work that way, but most other stuff doesn't. Right. And that's where this breaks down. That's where the whole thing breaks down. Like that writing doesn't work. Art doesn't work that way.
Yep. All right. Let's do some Discord questions here.
Yeah.
Siridar. I find that my job of technical support man means that some things seep over into the world outside of work, replying to personal emails with the customer service tone, that sort of thing. Do you find that the job of talking to microphones man seeps over into your life outside of work? For example, do you have an overwhelming urge to fill silence in conversations?
Well, that's my job on podcasts. Like I'm every podcast has two. It's like Law and Order. Every podcast has 2 parts. One is the pensive, thoughtful question asker, and one is the person who never stops talking to keep the silence from existing.
It's a good cop, bad cop situation.
Yeah, the criminal justice system, police, and anyway. My daughter and wife accuse me of Professor Willing occasionally.
Okay.
Which is their nice way of saying, yo, you don't have to explain everything.
Fair.
It's not that nice also. Yeah.
I have gotten into the habit of occasionally talking to my girlfriend and being like, okay, I'll only spend 30 seconds telling you about this. I promise.
Yeah.
And then I'll stop.
Look, everybody has stuff that they're interested in that people around them maybe are less interested in. Right. And like, my wife watches some TV shows that I just could give a fuck about, but she's excited about them and I'll always talk to her about it. Like, it's always fun to the reason I liked doing Tested so much was it's always fun to talk about stuff with people who are really excited about the thing that they're talking about. Right.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know.
There was I don't know if you saw, there was a TikTok going around the last couple of days. Somebody who, they're in character play acting this, but the idea was like, think about all the bullshit you write in corporate emails, which is what he's talking about in this question. Now imagine somebody in their 80s in 30 or 40 years with dementia who can only speak in, I'm going to put a pin in that. Can everybody see my camera? I'll follow up with you. Like imagine when the current generation of corpo drones starts to age.
Oh no.
And can only speak in corporate email.
Oh, that's the most cursed thing I've heard in a long time.
Yeah,
I think it's
dire.
So is that worse, or is it worse when you get to like the brain rot Gen Z kids that are like 6-7ing in their dementia phase? This is my dementia age era.
This is all too dire for this time of morning.
Yeah, no. Why did you bring this hex upon us?
Let's just read another actionable question here.
I love this idea.
Here's one from Figgleby.
That's a good name too.
How do you guys feel about ultra-wide monitors versus 2 traditional monitors? I'm considering making the switch to free up a little desk space. I usually have all my communication apps, Outlook, Teams, Discord, etc. on the right screen and have my productivity applications on the left. How do you guys handle your monitor setups and workflows? Exactly like that. Like quite literally what you just described. I have 2 regular 16:9 monitors. The one on the right is exactly what you said, email and Discord and such, and Slack. The one in front of me is the main monitor. So I don't know about you.
So I do top and bottom just because if I do stuff that I use all the time on the left or right, then I end up with real sore neck.
Yeah.
Problem.
So that's something I really need to interrogate. I had my first follow-up after this surgery a couple days ago and confirmed with the surgeon that the amount of time spent looking down was definitely a contributing factor in the problem I had to have surgery for.
You getting a hump? Is that the situation?
Well, it was stenosis. It was, the vertebrae grew extra bone basically. And like he called it tech neck. He said, yes, that's a huge problem these days. And he also said like it's partially genetic. He's like, there are people that can look down all the time like this and not have this happen because some of it is predisposition, but also keeping your head in that correct position for too long is definitely a problem. The thing I did not think to ask him though is what about side to side movement? Because the amount of time I spend with my head to the right looking at this right monitor is also questionable probably. But I really like, some people are fine with this, but there's that There's kind of that orientation where you can have the two monitors and stare at the seam, like orient your head at the seam in between them and look back and forth.
Well, it sucks if you play games.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. So I'm not down. Of course, even with an ultra wide, you're still having to turn your head back and forth, right?
Well, you just need to get further away from it.
I guess so. I really like 16:9 monitors largely for things like games that expect you to have a 16:9 screen. Like I just don't want to deal with software that doesn't know how to handle a non-standard aspect ratio, especially for streaming, because the amount of streaming we do in particular, like it's really too much work to deal with cramming like what is it like 32:9 is probably the most common ultra wide.
Some are 21:9.
So, yeah, right, sure. But
the 32 that Samsung G9 is 32:9, I think, or 28:9 or something. Right. It's enormous. It's like 170 degrees or something when you sit in it.
Yeah, like if you're not streaming, this is not a problem, obviously, but it's much easier to just have a screen that is 16:9 and capture that into a 16:9 stream container.
Yeah. I was gonna say if I'm ever in a situation where I'm not streaming on the reg, then or don't have to capture video for work, because a lot of my stuff, like I have to capture video for community and for game dev stuff fairly regularly, like at least a couple times a week. And having the 16:9 monitor makes that much easier.
Yep.
Switching to the tiling window manager in Linux has made me pine for the days of the ultra wide, because it is made for that kind of like Neri with its infinite scrolling panel makes me think that the Samsung G9 with its huge field of vision and like that would be amazing. But also, so I do top and bottom because of the neck thing. So I'm always looking up to do the comm stuff, and email and Slack and Discord and all that stuff lives on the top monitor. And it means that I kind of rock back in my chair a little bit when I need to do stuff up top instead of.
I will say, based on recent experience, I will recommend trying to pivot at the waist as much as possible and not at the neck.
Yeah. I really, really, really like having monitor arms. I have clamp-on arms for both of the monitors. They're both on actually one arm, and there's just a pivot. Like there's a boom that kind of comes out of the arm that both monitors are hooked onto.
I also have a dual monitor single mount thing. But
you could probably just make that go vertical if you have the right size pole for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I highly recommend the vertical. Vertical's great.
I will never, ever again have monitors not on arms for the rest of my life. It is just, it's just too convenient.
Yeah. I literally, I was looking at the monitor I bought earlier this year when my 4K monitor crapped out, and I just threw away the stand for it because I'm like, I'm not
kidding.
Like, there's no reason to keep it.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm thinking, like right now I have the 4K on the bottom and I have an old 1080p 360 monitor up top. And I'm kind of thinking that I might switch to a 1440p for the main monitor, because like with the scaling, that's essentially what resolution I'm running.
Yep.
And then scale the 4K, put that up top, and put that 1440p as well for when I need to capture 4K video.
Yeah, this is actually something we should talk about sometime soon. Once I go through this process as well, I'm gonna get some computer specific glasses.
Oh yeah.
Because I can't see the monitor with my current progressive lenses anymore very well.
Oh no.
Which is a whole other thing. I think that might be interesting to talk through because there's a bunch of different like configurations for correction at different distances and how that's laid out in the lens. You know, how much 3-foot distance do you get versus how much far distance, how much 12-inch. Anyway, but
I'm still good at 3 feet, but I feel I'm finding myself having to move the phone further and further away when I use it, which is not good.
I can't even read my watch. I can't. I could just barely extend my arm away from my face enough to kind of read the watch without pulling my glasses off at this point. But
so I dug out my old Zune HD this weekend and I had bought an $8 battery replacement for it. And I realized that I have to get like a one of those work lights with the magnifier on it for when I'm doing up close work like that. Because I don't have, like, it used to be, I don't like soldering and stuff with my glasses off because it's dangerous. You don't want solder flicked into your eyeball. But I just don't have, like, if it's far enough away to see clearly, I can't, the pieces are too small. And if it's up close enough, I have to take the glasses completely off. And that's, anyway, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
Getting old sucks. You shouldn't do it.
Yeah, it's not great. It beats the alternative.
Probably, yeah.
The reason I brought the glasses thing up, though, is that, like, that notwithstanding, I think I've really settled on 1440p at 27-inch as a really nice sweet spot of pixel density and size without having to do UI scaling.
Yeah, if I didn't have to capture 4K occasionally on the reg, like PC World posts everything in 4K, so
yeah,
when I do stuff for them, I capture it at 4K.
If you've got actual 4K like job requirements, that doesn't work, but just for gaming and like basic productivity, I think it's good.
I think for there's this, like, I realized when I was setting up this near machine, I tried a bunch of different scaling factors. And the one I ended up at was the one that landed me at 1440p, which I think is 1.5. And it's a really nice balance. Like I can have a lot of windows open if I want to make something big. Games run great. Like it's a good setup. Good way to go.
Yeah. And you know, not having to deal with the scaling is nice. And also the other thing is it makes monitors cheaper.
Yeah, because that's the fat part of the market right now.
I think it was a Dell or Alienware recently put out a 1440p 27-inch OLED monitor for like $350. Like the OLED monitors at that configuration are starting to get like commodity level pricing almost.
That's pretty revolutionary. Like that's a big deal. That monitor is a pretty big deal.
Yeah,
but yeah, like it's wild that's where we're at now.
Totally. Like I've held off on an OLED monitor because I will run into burn in. Like I just use too many UI elements in the same place all the time. Like it will burn in eventually. But once it starts getting maybe a little cheaper than that, it starts to get a lot easier to swallow.
Yep.
You know. Like anyway.
Yep.
All right. Fortune has a good question. On April 1st, 2026, Apple turned 50. It feels like it's been a very muted anniversary for such a big company. Do you think Apple doesn't really care about marking milestones, or is pointing out that a company seen as cutting edge is 50 years old now something they would want to avoid?
Do you think Apple's seen as cutting edge?
I think so. Well, that as with many things in technology, that question can be approached from many angles. I think like at the low level of technology that most people who use their products don't care about or don't think about, absolutely, 100%. Like
probably
in terms
individual products are like this year's iPhone is people look at as a cutting edge thing. I mean, the goggles are kind of cool.
I mean, again, this is like not the category most people are thinking about when they ask a question like this, but I'm thinking about like their approach to security of their operating system, all of the like crazy seamless interoperability that's enabled between their products, you know, like the handoff of AirPods between devices. Like they put a lot of low level architectural work into their stuff that is absolutely bleeding edge. In a way that most companies can't if they don't manage the entire hardware and software stack top to bottom.
That's true.
Like Microsoft can never do that stuff because they don't control hardware most of the time. But in terms of like their product offerings, like in fact, Tim Cook being outgoing now has triggered a bunch of like retrospectives on his tenure, and a lot of people are like, yeah, it kind of sort of stagnated under the watch was kind of the one major new, and I guess AirPods were the only real.
AirPods are a big deal. I think
they're great. Like they're excellent products, but like there has not been anything on the level of an iPhone or iPad under his watch.
I mean, I think I don't know that you can expect that. I don't think the iPad. I don't think the iPhone and the iPad are in the same category. The iPad's neat, but it's not a generational product, and the iPhone is a generational product. I would argue that the Apple Watch and the AirPods are probably in the same kind of tier list as the iPad.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of impact, I think so. I saw a picture the other day that Xbox posted when Matt and Asha did their, hey, we're talking to the people who work at Xbox who still remain, and they had everybody in the lobby of one of those buildings in Redmond. And I looked at that picture and I didn't see very many people under 50.
Huh.
Like it was all old people.
Sure.
And like, I'm not one to be ageist about stuff, but I think that a lot of the current large tech companies have a problem, especially as they've laid off a bunch of people and probably a lot of the junior people, that these workforces are aging in a way that definitely a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see it.
Yeah. Apple, I would bet, like we never see pictures of Apple's workforce for good reason. I wonder if they have a similar problem.
Yeah, I guess that's possible.
Yeah.
And also like all of the I don't know, all the energy, all the youth, all the VC is going into AI companies at this point. So there's there's nobody is out there founding new traditional technology companies. They're all chasing that.
You can't get money if you don't have AI part of your pitch these days is the common wisdom.
Yep.
I went to kids. I can't imagine at the college job fairs, kids are going to the Microsoft booth. I assume the Microsoft booth has similar vibes to like the IBM booth when we were kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure. And where does that put IBM then relatively? Like IBM's 100 and something years old now.
I mean, they're in the GE section now.
Yes. Like they're basically just B2B at this point.
Yeah. Well, they do. They're almost like consultants, right? They do. If you have a computing problem, they can come fix it.
Yep. Question from Frangus.
Frangus is a good name.
Yep. Is the Windows 11 experience different depending on what country you're from? I live in Norway and find Windows 11 to basically be the same as 10. No Copilot push, no ads anywhere. Listening to the podcast and the general hate for Windows 11 makes me think there must be a difference.
The EU has a little bit of a different Windows experience because of antitrust regulation.
Okay.
The other thing is if you have different versions of Windows, it's different. So if you're on an enterprise version of Windows, it is much more like Windows 10. It's challenging for consumers to get the enterprise version of Windows.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, I'm not talking about Pro. I'm talking about the actual enterprise version of Windows.
Sure. Okay, I'm going to read a question about home automation. I don't want to try to pronounce the username. Do you want to give it a
Arnesis Lacaw.
Yeah, okay, sure. I'll accept that. Can you give an update on your home automations you currently use?
So I have my stuff's relatively straightforward. It's basically lighting that turns on, and then there's home and away. So when anybody's at home, then the house is in one mode, and when everybody goes away, then it changes into like away mode, which turns off the lighting automations. Or actually sets them to away automation. So like the front porch light still comes on, it stays on until somebody comes home. Basically, the bedroom lights, which are on the street side of the house, turn on, so it looks like people are home even if there aren't. But the rest of it stays the same.
In Home Assistant, can you kind of define home and away globally, and the like specific automations for those things fall under those umbrellas, or do you have to go into each one and give it to version? Like how do you manage that state?
The way I have it set up, and I think that this is one of those things where there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it, and I think they probably have a better system than what I'm using because I did this before they added the new system, is when everybody's away, it turns off certain automations, and when everyone's home, it turns on certain automations. Or when anyone's home, it turns on certain automations. Now, there have been some hilarious fuck-ups where, like, a babysitter, my sister-in-law was here with the kiddo, and the kiddo didn't register as a person because she didn't have a phone at that time, and then all the lights turned off at 6 o'clock, and they were just sitting in the dark because they couldn't figure out how to turn them on.
Yeah, that's fun. I was going to ask, so that's how it's tracking if somebody's home. It's purely based on the presence of phone?
Yeah, the phone location is the thing. Now, once the kiddo got a watch, it wasn't a problem anymore because I just tied it to that.
I guess you could.
And it's geofenced.
I don't know if surely support for this exists in some form in there. You could probably also set that up based on movement detection, motion detection as well in some fashion.
So I stopped doing that because all of my motion sensors are battery powered, and that meant as soon as the battery died, then stuff stopped working in unpredictable ways that like if I was traveling for work, my wife couldn't figure out.
That maybe seems like an actual productive application of the technology where you can track human movement through Wi-Fi disturbance in the future, maybe.
Yeah. You have that exists. You can buy those for like $40 a pop.
You can do that now.
Yeah. They're called millimeter wave sensors, and they use existing 2.4, I think 2.4, maybe it's 5 gigahertz. I can't remember radio noise.
Oh, that's cool.
To infer. And like the resolution you get on that is all the way down to like, is this person sitting on the couch or are they laying on the couch?
Like it seems like you could do some pretty specific detection to say like, hey, if you recognize human shapes moving around, then somebody's home.
You can detect if people are asleep.
Wow.
Theoretically.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't have that. I'd have to climb up in the attic to wire that stuff in because it requires hardwire, and you usually put it in the ceiling. The big stuff that I do is just lighting. So I have lighting automations that turn on at dusk based on latitude, longitude, and the fact that there's a giant mountain in the southern exposure that blocks the sun most of the year. And then I have another automation that runs at like 10:30 at night that starts to dim the lights a little bit. So it goes from like full bright daytime transition to evening transition. And then I have another one that runs at midnight that turns almost everything off. Because usually that's one person is up and they're kind of in the living room. I also have an automation that sets the color of an RGB bulb by the front door when the air quality is above 50. The PM 2.5 is above 50. That lets me know that maybe you should start thinking about having a breath mask on you if it's fire season.
Does that bulb just stay off and if it's below the threshold?
It's white if it's below the threshold.
Oh, okay.
If it's on. Yep. If it's during the daytime, it's off. If it's on during the daytime, it's red. And so we ended up with this because it ended up being like the easiest. Like you wanted things like the exterior lighting at the holiday season to turn off at like 10 o'clock and my front porch lights turn off at 10 o'clock and, you know, the backyard lights turn off. I have a couple of other automations that are like the back door opens and the light that goes, that's right beside that turns on, stuff like that. But that's the main brunt.
That's cool. I was just thinking yesterday, there's wildfires in Georgia right now. And it reminded me of there was that period here in the Bay Area in like 2019 to 20 where it was like, all of a sudden it was like, oh my God.
Orange sky.
Is this just going to be every summer? The whole state's going to be covered in smoke now. Has this just become wildfire country? But it turns out instead, it's just everywhere is wildfire country now because it seems like there are always bad wildfires somewhere, but it's not any one place.
There are no individual climate related disasters. It's all the same disaster.
Yeah. Anyway,
upbeat.
My Home Assistant situation is way simpler than yours even. Like I basically just use it as a bridge between different brands of smart plugs.
You do it all manually, right? For the most part?
Pretty much. Well, what do you mean by manual?
Like you turn on and off lights with the app on your phone?
I do have some on timers, like the lights in this office go on and off. Lights in the bed. Like we have like a red light or an orange light bulb in the bedroom that is timed to the sunset. So like
Roxanne.
I just, sure. Like basically like an orange light turns on in the bedroom.
Okay.
Whenever it thinks is sunset every day.
Okay.
Just so there's not like a dark room when you're walking around at night.
Okay.
And
I like that.
And it goes off at like 9:30 or whatever. But it's super limited. It's all just lighting and smart switches. And I mostly just use it, like I said, to be able to use the same interface for different brands of smart plugs and not have to use all their individual apps or like connect them all to like Apple Home individually. It's been really interesting to see how much some people are using Home Assistant as like the center of everything they do in their house now.
It's definitely capable of that in a way that it hasn't really been before.
Like I know it's a really robust ecosystem, but you see people out there using it for everything from like their home VPN to like 3D printing stuff to like audio AirPlay type playback and stuff. And like, that's just not the way I like doing things. Like I like much more of a distributed, like everything is doing one job kind of thing and not putting too much load bearing on one application.
So my VPN runs on it. But like the one into the house, I have Music Assistant running on it right now, which is amazing. By the way, if you haven't tried Music Assistant and you have like I have Google speakers, I have Sonos speakers, I have a bunch of different stuff in the house.
I think I've heard of that recently.
Yeah, it's a Home Assistant spin-off project, basically.
Okay. Oh, does that not run in Home Assistant?
It can. Yeah, it can. It'll run as a plugin or whatever. But the neat thing it does is it kind of unifies. If you have like, for example, like my wife has Spotify, but we also get Apple Music as a family, and it lets us both interface with those products and across all the different devices that we have in the house in a way that really makes sense and is easy. And it also unifies with like your local library and stuff like Audio Bookshelf and all that. It's super good.
This sounds like, sorry, I'm just looking through it real quick. This sounds like basically what I use OwnTone for, except this probably does way more.
Yeah, I think this supports stuff that goes beyond, because OwnTone's AirPlay, right?
It's just for sending, and I mean it'll take Spotify, like your local library, Spotify, and like a few other services as input, and then but it's mostly just for streaming to AirPlay devices. Yeah.
So the thing that this doesn't do that I would love for it to do, I think, is it doesn't show up as a Spotify endpoint. Spotify has a neat protocol that like you can connect speakers to your Spotify account, like Sonos or Google or whatever. And then in the Spotify app, just like with an AirPlay endpoint, it'll pop up the speaker as an output. So you don't have to do any kind of shenaniganry to configure it. But yeah, the problem with Music Assistant is a little heavy for the CM5 and my Raspberry Pi in my Home Assistant yellow box, because it's like a CM5 and I just don't have enough RAM for it. So
sure.
I think I'm gonna move it over onto the B-Link server.
Just to be fair to OwnTone, it'll stream to iTunes, which is DAAP, Roku, which I guess has its own streaming protocol, which is RSP, AirPlay devices, and Chromecast. So it does do a decent number of devices. There's one other thing I'm trying to find here real quick before we move on. I can't find the name of it. Did you know there is there's basically an open standard kind of version of AirPlay, not version of AirPlay, but an equivalent to AirPlay that has come up in the last year. I forget the name of it. Like it's effectively
the thing Microsoft was pushing, right?
Well, this is like fully kind of open source from the ground up, but it basically functions like AirPlay, where it can do multi-room streaming. It's just a different protocol for streaming audio to devices, but it's like fully open, and like I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's cool that that's happening in case, Apple ever decides to kill off AirPlay or whatever. Like there's now an open version of that.
That's cool.
And I'm hopeful that maybe that kind of thing will come in handy for resuscitating Sonos devices one day, because as somebody who has a couple of Sonos devices that I'm worried are going to be end of life or whatever, and you just won't be able to do anything with them. Like I'm hoping for jailbreaks or something on those things at some point, because they're like very high quality speaker or reasonably high quality speakers.
Yeah, I have a couple old Play 3s or something that I use just as like ambient music in a couple of rooms. The Music Assistant is really good for that, for what it's worth. You should look at that.
Yeah,
it might replace OwnTone, because it'll do AirPlay as well.
Yeah,
it'll do all the things that you want.
Okay, last question, probably.
Sure.
DC Actual. Do we know if the Orion capsule runs on Linux? I know they use Windows Surface devices, but that stuff isn't controlling a rocket engine.
So the acm.org blog had a really good post called "How NASA Built Artemis 2's Fault-Tolerant Computer."
Yeah, that piece, I will link that piece in the show notes. It is fascinating.
The TLDR is that they use a thing called Real-Time OS, which is made by Green Hills Software, I think, right?
I believe that's the case.
Runs,
they put out a press release. Green Hill Software congratulates NASA and Lockheed Martin on the successful first crewed flight of the Orion spacecraft. I'm looking for... Okay, the Orion spacecraft runs the Integrity 170... RTOS is not the name of their product. That's a generic term.
Oh, generic term. Okay.
Integrity 178 is the name of the operating system that they make, but it is an RTOS.
Got it.
I'll just put it this way: when I click through to the Integrity 178 page, the kind of banner at the top is full of rescue helicopters and fighter jets and cargo planes. Like this seems like a product like very much sold to kind of aerospace.
They're a military contractor. Yeah. So the interesting thing about the way the flight control software on the spacecraft work, at least NASA spacecraft, is they starting with the shuttle, I guess, they looked at having like triple redundancy, which is what most avionics stuff does, isn't sufficient when like you mess up and you're going to go into outer space for the rest of your lives, however short that may be. So with the shuttle, they had 8 computers that were all running simultaneously the same calculations in sync, and they were designed to no send a fail, basically. Yeah. So like if they got a bit flip because of a cosmic ray burst, if some high energy particle hit the RAM and jacked something up, they would just say, I'm out of this calculation. Like it was basically they're all racing to do the calculation, and they fall off one by one until hopefully 3 or 4 agree with each other. And then they also had an extra computer, a single computer that was running a completely different OS, everything different, that also was supposed to agree with the output of the main cluster of I think 8. Yeah,
so that sounds like that's kind of exactly the setup they've got on Artemis as well.
Yes, so the shuttle computers were based on IBM mainframe, like little tiny mainframe boxes that were originally built for the military for B-52s and B-1Bs, B-1 bombers. This new one is a newer. It's not I don't know that there's any direct lineage, but it's the same idea on seemingly newer hardware.
Yeah, I don't think they've come out and said what the hardware is that Artemis is using. I mean, there's a list of supported processors on the Integrity 178 page, so we could certainly get an idea of it's one of about a dozen, roughly. There's a bunch of ARMs, a few Intel chips, and some Power PC that it's supported on.
Yeah.
But I'm like pretty safe to assume it is not like bleeding edge fast hardware. It is something very old and hardened and reliable.
Yeah, that's it. So it's like the newest thing here. They have like Cortex A9s on the processor list, which is kind of crazy. That's a relatively new processor.
Yeah, actually there is 13th gen Intel Core i7 is listed here, but I mean, I would assume NASA is probably using something more. Probably don't want to put Raptor Lake in.
I hope they updated the BIOS before they launched this thing. If they did.
Yeah.
So yeah, the interesting thing is there's a whole bunch of work that they did. Like the article that is going to be in the show notes talks about how they had like a network redundancy between the computers, how they keep everything in sync across the slow network buses, stuff like that.
That's the craziest part. Wild. To me. Like it is. What is it? It's basically two flight computers, each containing two identical flight control modules, and then each of those modules has two independent error correcting CPUs.
So it's 8 total processors it's running in parallel,
like plus the farm of 8.
Plus the one that's running something completely different.
Yeah, they call that the BFS, the backup flight software, which, like you said, is a completely different system doing the same thing just in case. And this article goes into like some very quick, vague talk about like what happens in a total disaster situation in terms of recovery.
Yeah, I feel like after the shuttle program ended and they did the they declassified some of the stuff. They talked about how they designed that stuff. Because the space shuttle was fly-by-wire, right? So there's no, like, the computer mediated the input by the astronauts to turn it into translation control for the aircraft, for the spacecraft. And they talked about how they got all that stuff synced up and how they designed the software. I want to say there's I'll see if I can find the article about it, because it was fascinating, that talked about how they ended up with this scheme of having the cluster plus the one thing that was running something completely different, so that if there was a failure in the cluster, like if there was a software bug in the cluster that caused an error, then hopefully that essentially fault tolerant machine would pick that up.
Yeah.
They also talked about in the article, in the CSM article,
or ACM.
Article. Sorry.
So this publication is called Communications of the ACM, which basically seems like kind of a academic level computing industry sort of trade publication. I'm going to have to keep an eye on this site because it's like some real deep computer science nerd shit.
Well, I think ACM is a Society of Computer.
Yeah, that's what I assume. But this seems like their sort of like trade publication. Like some of the headlines: we must teach computer science in prison. Amazon's quiet overhaul of the trademark system. There were a couple others that really caught my eye. The golden rule of big memory: persistence is not harmful. And the credits just sound like academic white paper credits. Like I may have to dig into some of this stuff. It sounds pretty interesting.
Well, so they talk a little bit about how they use supercomputers to introduce novel faults in the programs when they were testing this stuff, and they did things like mimic solar flares and high energy particles hitting different parts of the processor to like do that. And then also it has to be fault tolerant to the point that if power goes out completely, it has a recovery process that can get the capsule going again, because this is the computer that controls everything from like the when the rocket fires and when the thrusters fire and how the input from the controls just translated to the thrusters to like the positioning of the solar panels and all that kind of stuff. So
there's like 800 lines of interesting conversation that come off of this. Like we probably could do a whole episode if we had the expertise, but the network determinism is the really crazy one to me, beyond the redundancy in the processing. That they have to, I mean, this stuff is like mostly over my head, but they have to like chop up the network traffic and keep it all in sync in a real time way. And basically like they are constantly like up to every second resetting the clocks on the individual modules as they talk to each other over the network, because it all has to be in sync in real time, which is just crazy. I guess to answer the actual question, does it run Linux? The Linux kernel just got real-time support like a year or two ago. I don't remember exactly when that was, but I remember it was like a big Phoronix headline when they finally got that in. I guess they've been working on it for like a decade or more, I think. But at any rate, you can see why something that is open source and just became capable in that way would probably not be appropriate in this setting.
I think that the Green Hills people have a reputation as being pretty strongly against open source software.
I'm sure,
because
100%.
Probably because of their situation as military contractors.
Those defense contracts are extremely fat, I am sure. There's one other thing I was going to mention here. Do you know the YouTube channel Lori Wired?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with her?
Yeah. Did she do the RAM thing a few weeks ago?
Possibly. She puts out so many videos. It's hard to keep up. But there's two things here. I want to say, like, generally, I feel like people are way too willing to assign like authority to people on social media who just sort of talk a lot about a thing. Like, I think generally people should be more discerning about who they consider experts on places like social media just because they address things a lot. That said, I think she is the exception that proves the rule here. I think she might be one of the smartest people on the internet doing computing stuff.
She did a video that popped up in my feed the other day about RAM having a 60-year-old design flaw.
Yes, I saw that one.
The code hack to work around.
I think her day job is like security researcher at Google, if I'm not mistaken. But like just the breadth and the depth of material she puts out on different like very deep computing subjects is just like kind of astonishing. Anyway, I say that as a mostly a layperson who is not in a position to be judging that kind of thing. But like she seems incredibly smart about this stuff. Anyway. She's done some videos on aerospace coding in the past, and apparently, like the military and NASA have incredible. Like, there is a C standard for like military aerospace coding in the U.S. Like there's a handbook that basically forbids like all kinds of things you would do with C, the language, in less critical contexts. And like I know she's done at least one video that goes really deep on what that standard is and why they forbid so many aspects of the language or so many patterns that you could use in the language because there's not a lot of fault tolerance here.
I was going to say that. So I found the Space Shuttle Avionics System Software Guidelines document, which I'll put the link in the show notes as well. But they go into why they have how they came up with this plan and how it evolved from the NASA and Skylab stuff, which is interesting. Yeah, but yeah, like the whole point of that article is that normal software, like this is, I feel like this came up in a budget situation. Is why does the software for the space shuttle cost so much money to make? And it's because the cost of failure is enormous. Yeah. And it's a different, like, if your airplane software fails, gravity will still get the people in it on the ground. You could maybe still glide it in. Yeah. If your Apollo guidance module software fails, then either your 3 people in that capsule either miss Earth on the way home or miss the moon on the way out and just fly off into space forever.
Like that scenario is so stomach turning. I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah,
it's bad. Like we have never had a lost in space incident yet, and like I don't want to think about that happening.
Be better. Yeah. Anyway. Bad way to go.
Last thing I'll mention really quick here, and we talked a lot about this, but they talk about a fail silent mode to these flight modules where if they return a bad result, they just don't return anything. Yeah. Which is what that means. But it makes me think of the term fail safe, which has become very like just adopted in everyday language. Like people know what that is intuitively, but I gather there's this whole like list of similar modes that people don't know about that are only probably used in like specific discipline type situations.
It's going to shock you, but some people value computers that don't lie to you.
Sure, yeah, no, but what I mean is like this makes me think about like, oh, what other failure modes are there that I don't know about besides fail safe, fail silent? There's another one I heard about or I read about in some context just a few months ago that I cannot remember right now. But they're all basically just like what happens in a failure. It's like something to think about in the future or something I should read about at some point. But anyway.
Look, and building intentionality into your failure modes seems important when you're going to outer space. But what do I know? Yep. I'm just a frog sipping tea.
Also, it's impossible to Google things like this at this point. Like this is the kind of place where actually sometimes you have to turn to an LLM because Like when I Google failsafe alternatives, there are too many products named failsafe now.
Oh, God.
That it's like impossible to find generalized information about failure modes because it's all just going to be comparing different pieces of software called failsafe and stuff. Anyway.
Everything's great, Brad.
Yep.
This is a great bunch of questions. Thanks everybody for sending them in.
Yes,
if you have questions for next month, you can send them to techpod@content.town. Or you can post them in the Question Seeking Answers channel in the Discord. And if you're not in the Discord, why the heck not? You can go in there by going to patreon.com/techpod and signing up for the patron tier. We are supported by you guys, the listeners. So we're here working for you and wouldn't be here without you. So we appreciate every single person who supports the show. Again, it's patreon.com/techpod. And it's $5 a month. That's like half the prices of a cup of coffee these days.
That's right.
So less than a gallon of gas. Look, gas is $8 a gallon in California now.
God, is it really?
Yeah, it's insane,
dude. Everything I read and listen to about this situation says that like the lead time on tankers leaving that area is so long getting to their destinations that we haven't actually seen the disruption in the oil supply yet, because the final tankers that left before all this started are still just now arriving.
Yep.
So we haven't actually hit the cliff yet, which is coming.
It's like COVID. It's like nobody learned a lesson from COVID when everything shut down. But anyway, the irony is that the thing he's going to do is force everybody to electrify everything. So, good news. But support the show. We appreciate you when you do that. And we want to do thank yous to our associate and executive producer tier patrons because it's the end of the month. So thank you to our associate producers, including Thomas Shea, Jad Rita, P. Tibbs, Steve Lynn, Tom Fuller, Just Associate Wedge, Nathan Phelps, Ben Tallman, Tom Hilton, Andre M. Burke, P.E., Andrew Dicey Scholdice, Alejandro Navarro, Matt Walker, parentheses, Walkman 8080, close parentheses, Sanchit Kumar, Felix Kramer, Kerp, Brutal Kerfuffle, and Eric. Thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you.
And an extra special thank you goes out to our executive producer patrons, including James Kamek, David Allen, Octothorpe Bunny for Work, Jordan Lippett, Andrew Slosky, OpenAI Delenda Est, and Pantheon, makers of the HS3 high-speed 3D printer. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
We will be back next week with another edition of the Tech Pod. I think, so a couple of notes. I think I want to talk about that practical, it's not practical reality.
Practical magic.
Practical magic's a different thing. I'm talking about the documentary. I'm not talking about the Sandra Bullock movie.
It's the iPhone documentary, right?
It's about the technology that led to the dawn of
General Magic.
General Magic, thank you. Would be a good thing to watch in the coming weeks because I think we're going to talk about that in the same way that we did Pirates of Silicon Valley. And thanks everybody for listening. As always, please consider the environment before printing this podcast. Bye, everybody.